Hey guys, welcome back to Oak Abode. Today I am going to get my hands dirty and clean out the deep litter chicken coop. I'm posting another video all about deep litter how-tos, kind of the different steps in how to establish deep litter bedding, or at least what works for us. But today I am just gonna clean it out and just kind of talk through, show you guys what that looks like. This is one of the things I've been avoiding all day. I kept pushing it off, Now I only have like an hour and a half to do it, and it's gonna rain for the next 3 days. So that being said, I might just narrate so I don't have to stop and talk, because we gotta get this done before winter hits. So this is pretty much what the deep litter looks like after we have let it sit for about 4 to 5 months. I'm gonna uncover a little bit here. The top layer is the fresher bedding, and then down below you can kind of see a little more what it looks like when the chicken poop and the bedding starts to break down. This stall does have a dirt floor, but we have used the same method in coops with plywood floors, and it's worked just fine. Theoretically, eventually the plywood floor will start to break down as well, but we did it for I think about 3 years and we never saw the plywood start to break down, so I think that takes quite a while. Next, I'm taking out all the waterers, feeders, nest boxes, that kind of thing, so we have a nice big open area to work in. There's a naughty little egg pile over here. So beneath the roost is where the most waste builds up, so I usually pay a little extra attention to that spot, make sure to mix it around really well. And then I just start scooping, so I'm just kind of testing out the bedding a little bit, see where the floor starts, the bedding ends, and then I'm going to load as much as I can into the bucket of the tractor, and we're going to take it out to the compost pile. This is a larger scale of the deep litter than we've done in the past because we have more birds and a bigger stall. We'll probably move back to a smaller flock and a smaller coop once we move from this property, but for the time being, the tractor definitely helps. I will link below some of the materials that we use to clean out the coop, as well as the materials we use to set up the deep litter. We just use a snow shovel because the bedding is usually plenty light, but if you have a wetter mixture, then you're probably going to want a little more substantial shovel. You can see here there's a couple wet spots that probably were from some kind of water spill, so I do like to give a little extra TLC to those spots. Of course, the chickens always have to come in and check out what's going on. There is no smell to the deep litter method if you're doing it correctly, so if you smell something stinky, that means that something is wrong. So pretty much the whole time I was cleaning this out, the only thing I smelled is kind of like, almost like a mineral-y kind of dirt smell. It's very similar to healthy compost, or if you were just to go in the backyard and dig up dirt, that's kind of the smell that I have with my deep litter. Here we have another successful load in the tractor. And still pretty dry bedding. When I clean out underneath the roost, you'll see it gets a little bit different consistency, but this is still what we got right now. A lot of people ask us how we use this chicken bedding in our garden because we talk all the time about how it's the best fertilizer we've ever used. So if that's something you're curious about, please leave a comment below. Maybe I can do an in-depth video on kind of the step-by-step of how we apply it to our garden. These are not our alpacas, but they do love to say hi to us anyway. The girls do really enjoy coming in and checking out when we clean out the deep litter because oftentimes there's little bits of food and maybe even some bugs, little microorganisms that we can't see that they like to snack on. So they usually like to get in the way even more than they already like to get in the way. So now I'm tackling underneath the roost. This area does usually have more bedding and more waste because I'm adding more bedding to it to try and combat the waste while we're not cleaning it out. So this is a little more labor intensive, but still really not that bad. I think this area took me maybe all of 15 minutes to scoop out. As you can see, there is more waste broken down in here, so it still looks really good. Again, we know it's breaking down well because even though there is lots of waste here, you can tell by looking at it, it's not unhealthy, but also there is really no smell other than kind of that minerally dirt smell. So that was good news. You know you're a gardening nerd when you're cleaning out the chicken coop or even just watching this footage again. I'm getting all excited looking at how beautiful it's breaking down and how wonderful that is going to be for the garden. So another benefit to the deep litter method is it becomes less of a miserable chore and more of a, okay, this is going to really reward us in the long run chore. So it's a little more enjoyable that way. Again, you can see as I'm scooping, it all looks pretty dry. That is the way that I like to keep our deep litter, but some people prefer a wetter deep litter. So if that's something that you prefer, please let us know in the comments why you prefer it. Again, I have a whole separate video on the step-by-step of how we set up this deep litter. This video is just more focused on how we do the clean out itself. Of course, good old Reptar has to check out this wet spot. So this wet spot actually occurred because we had a few water spills. And the crazy part is, like I mentioned, there was absolutely no smell while I was cleaning out the coop until I hit this wet spot. I immediately got that kind of yucky smell that something's wrong. So I made sure to add a lot of nice dry bedding to this spot. But it is really amazing how moisture can throw off that balance. Okay, so if you think you need a workout on coop cleaning out day, if you use deep litter, you don't. That's another one of the benefits. So I just loaded up the last bit into the tractor. We're gonna dump that into the compost pile and I'll kind of show you guys what it looks like now, and then we're gonna put down the fresh bedding and we'll be good to go. So this is about how much bedding I like to leave in the coop. It actually takes a while to establish that beautiful layer of little microorganisms, so I don't like to start fresh bedding completely every time I clean it out. I like to leave about an inch of the beautiful, healthy composted bedding at the bottom so that it can kind of kickstart the next set of bedding into breaking down as well. If I had more time, I would probably just throw out some of those Grubterra chicken treats here and let them spread out this layer themselves. Don't forget to use our discount code OKABODE for 10% off of those wonderful, healthy Grubterra chicken treats. But because I'm just trying to get the chore done today, I'm just gonna rake it out a little bit so there's a little more of an even layer. Here's a close-up of some of the composted material. Again, there's no smell, and this is kind of what it looks like. I like to use the fine pine shavings for deep litter. It's really personal preference. There's no right or wrong answer. The reason I like the fine shavings is because I find they break down faster, and I like to use that bedding in my garden as soon as possible. I just find it's a little easier to keep everything balanced with this kind, but I know that plenty of people use the thicker flake shavings as well and don't have problems there. Today I'm using either 4 or 5 bags. I can't remember how many I used, but we're using about 5 bags to set up the initial layer of deep bedding, and then I will add more shavings as the chickens add more waste. But this is what's going to get us started on the winter bedding. Hey, Reptar. If you haven't seen my other informational video on deep litter, we like to clean out the deep litter maybe 2 to 3 times a year. Usually once before winter and once after winter, and sometime during the winter if the weather allows. It usually takes me 1 to 2 hours to do the deep clean out, even with a big project like this, and it definitely beats having to scoop it out every few days or every week. So this is how much we're starting with for the winter, but we will definitely be adding more bedding as the chickens are living in this space. Here's those Grub Terra chicken treats I mentioned. Thank you to everyone who's left comments and sent messages about how much your chickens love these. We are huge fans of the Grub Terra chicken treats as well. I'm adding some of those black soldier fly larvae chicken treats to the bedding so that the chickens start to kind of peck around and get excited about scratching up the bedding. Saves me a little work that way. So now everyone is happily pecking around in their new bedding. It's always a very exciting time for the flock. All in all, not too bad for a day's work. All right, I guess that's it for today. So I hope it was a little helpful to see how we clean out the deep litter. And like I said, there's a separate video on kind of the step-by-step, how we step it up or how we set it up. Winter is definitely when it gets the dirtiest because they spend the most time inside. So 2 to 3 times a year. Otherwise you can reference the other video for more deep litter in-depth. He liked that in-depth, get it? For more in-depth information on the deep litter process. But that took me about an hour and a half. So I am late for my hiking date with my husband. So I gotta get going, but I appreciate you guys watching. Leave any questions or comments below. Let me know your experiences with deep litter if you've tried it. But otherwise, that is all for today. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Okay, cue the crow. Come on, give me something.